Hello and welcome to Adobe Live. My name is Aaron Nace and I am so excited to be hosting the amazing, talented, ever creative, conceptual, genius artist, Bella Kotak. Bella, how you doing?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. This is so exciting. Day 2.
Day 2. Yesterday was so cool to watch you cut the subject out of the background, use all these beautiful stock images of the fish and show how they wrapped around the subject. We talked about lighting, we talked about conceptualization, we talked about life and creating art, and just like I felt like I learned so much yesterday. And I hope everyone here in the chat is enjoying it. Let's go ahead and check in with everyone here. We are such a fantastic chat. There we go. We've got Cody Bear in the chat. Christine Joan, glad you made it on time. Angel is asking, is there a way to watch this after the live? Yes, there definitely is. All of our live broadcasts here on Behance are going to be repeatable, so you can watch them at any time. And if you guys are joining us on YouTube, be sure to follow the link down below to check us out on Behance. That's where you can join us in the chat to chat live with me and Bella. All right, I just want to remind everyone to be sure to tune in 9 a.m. Pacific to join the Daily Creative Challenge with Voodoo Val. So good to see you guys here in the chat. Fantastic. Franchi says, yesterday was fantastic. Yes. Congrats. Franchi's giving us lots of love, Bella.
Thank you.
Yes. Bella, I'm so excited. Can you give us a little preview of what we're going to be learning today?
Yeah, so today we are going to be continuing this picture that we started yesterday. So if any of you guys missed it, check out yesterday's video because we did a lot. So what I will just do is turn everything off so you can see where we started. So we started over here. This was the beginning photo. And then we added a background. Oh, we cut our subject out. We added a background. And then we added some fish. And Aaron and I talked about the different ways to approach selecting and masking and isolating elements in a photo. I learned a lot of things. I think I shared some things with Aaron that he didn't know about. So it was really fun.
Yeah, I feel like the way that you approach making images and how intentional you are. Yesterday, you talked about how you loved like the 50s style theme of this image with the wet hair and the pearls and the jewelry on her eyes. And you felt like it was kind of an underwater image. And that's kind of where some of the inspiration for bringing the fish came in. And all of these themes, like you can tell, just play all the way through your imagery. And I learned, to me, that was like an eye opener. I was like, oh, I should really be paying attention to this with my own work.
Yeah, it was actually 20s, I believe, like that kind of a feeling where, because her hair is like all slicked back and she's got like that wet wave and the pearls. So it really just inspired this whole fishy aesthetic.
Yes.
And we're going to continue with it today. So I thought it'd be really fun to add some bubbles because she's got this beautiful eye makeup, which literally looks like bubbles. So I thought like that was also part of the whole inspiration as well. So I thought we could add some and sort of like really like sets the story that we want to tell, that she's this, I don't know, creature underwater. And then we would jump into skin cleaning and color toning.
Perfect.
And I would just share what I do. And then Aaron, I would love to hear your advice as well. I think that's always really fun.
I'm here to help in any way that I can, but I think you got this, Bella. Your work speaks for itself.
Well, thank you. So should we just go ahead and jump in on adding some bubbles?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let's have those bubbles.
Yay! Okay, so the first thing is I have a stock image over here, and I picked this up from Adobe Stock, and everything that you see in this photo, like all of these are stock fish. They're all from Adobe Stock as well. So I've really been having a lot of fun playing with stock pictures. Because it's shot against black, it makes it very easy for me to embed into the scene because all I have to do is just go to one blending mode, which is screen. And that's the best thing whenever anything is on black and you can just use that screen blending mode. It's really fun. So after that, pretty much I would just roughly make it bigger, make it smaller. I actually quite like the size of the bubbles right now. I think they're actually okay. I also love that there's loads of like these little pieces over here. So I'm just going to add some near her mouth. I'm just having a look. Like, I love that. Like maybe she's breathing out and something's coming out there.
So cool.
Right? And then all I do is open up a layer mask and I would just brush away the ones that I don't want. So there's several ways you can actually do this. You can just brush away the ones that you do want and then just invert the layer mask. Like if there's too many bubbles, you can do it that way. But I think it might be quite nice to pick and choose which ones I want to keep. And I like the idea of some of these coming over like where her eye is. So maybe like the eye makeup is like, I don't know. It might be
Bubbling up. I love it.
bubbling up, right?
It does actually look like it is bubbles turning into, yeah, it actually really, now that you say it, it's like, wow, it's kind of perfect.
Right. And like even this one, it looks like it's wrapping around and there's something coming across there. Okay, guys, I just threw this on here. So it's a happy coincidence.
Isn't that great when that works out?
It really is. It also looks like there's some coming out of her ear. So noticing that, I'm just going to get rid of the ones nearby so that you can kind of really focus on the things that are actually happening. What would be really cool is in the comments if people would share, like if they were here yesterday as well. Like it'd be really cool to see how many people who were here yesterday have tuned in with us today.
Yeah, let us know. Yeah, we did such a crazy amount of editing yesterday. I can't believe we brought this from basically just a portrait on a red background all the way to what it is today.
It was really fun. I actually thought we would take, it would go faster than it did actually. But it was really fun because I learned a lot. Different ways of selection. I realized that I have my own ways of doing things, but it's also really cool to like hear from other artists. And like you said, there's no one way of doing anything. It's not about how you get there. It's about the final product.
Exactly. And we've got Stony Braswell in the chat. Here yesterday and today. We've got Masha Grasset yesterday and today. Fairies yesterday and today. So we've got a lot of people coming back today. They're giving us all the love and saying, go Bella, you got this.
Oh, you guys, thank you. If you do, yes, it was really cool because I afterwards went on Instagram and a bunch of people had done some stories and it was really fun to like see them and reshare them. So if you do take some stories and use the hashtag Adobe Live and obviously tag me and Aaron, I will definitely share it. So
yes.
Yeah, it was so cool to see everybody like tuning in from their living rooms.
That's what's fantastic about live is like it really brings us closer with a worldwide audience. You know, people we might meet one day, but you know, like could be on the other side of the world. Now we get to all be in the same room and share art together.
Right? Okay, so we've got a few bubbles. I don't know if it's like too many, but it's kind of fun. I think I might get rid of some of the ones up here. And really, when you're compositing, I think it's always just really important to think about how this piece will also look like from far away, because most people are going to be looking at your work on the phone. It's totally so painful, isn't it?
It's totally true. Yeah, it's like 3 seconds and then a swipe. That's what you get
Yeah,
in this world.
it's so painful. I keep like, because like I realized earlier this image, if I do a there you go. Is it this? Yeah. If I do the image size, like this is how big this file is. It's 12,000 pixels by 12,000 pixels. So it's pretty big.
It's a huge.
It's a huge file. Usually it's like a usual file is what? Like 3,000, 4,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, but the reality is no one's gonna see it at that size. I don't think. So
Well, until it's printed on the side of a building with a giant Bella Kotak banner on the Art Institute. Oh, photographer
oh,
of the year, conceptual
can
artist of
we
the year.
manifest this, please? This would
I'm
be
seeing
so
it.
good.
I'm seeing
Oh,
it. The banners are poof, 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 rolling down right now. It's 100 feet wide.
yay. Okay, so another little trick that I do, I'm just gonna show you what I did. Another little trick that I do is if I wanted to add the same element to different parts of the picture, I would literally just duplicate it. So I'm duplicating this layer. I'm gonna delete the layer mask, and I'm gonna just go ahead and flip it over.
Mm.
And just kind of, because I'm looking at these like tiny little ones, like these tiny little bubbles like in the corner. So I'm just going to go ahead and sort of transform this a little bit and move them in place. And I do this a lot. So when I'm working with flowers and leaves in nature, I will just duplicate layers, sometimes flip them over and transform them, and then just jump back into my layer mask. And this time in my layer mask, I inverted it. So my layer is there, but the layer mask is black, so it's hidden, it's not gone. And now with a white brush, I'm going to brush back those little bubbles in that layer exactly sort of where I want them. So I have more control now. So this time I'm not taking away, I'm just adding.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So when it comes to, if you're not comfortable with using a layer mask, then I highly recommend that you check it out and really practice with it, because it will change the game, especially if you ever are interested in composite work. But even with anything like color toning, everything that I'm going to do from this point moving forward, like, yeah, I literally like live in the layer mask.
My favorite keyboard shortcut is the X key because that'll switch between white and black when you're painting on your layer mask.
Correct. Yeah. And if you hit D, then and you're not in a layer mask, then this automatically goes to black and white. Like I love that.
It's brilliant. D for
Yeah.
default, X for switch them around.
Yeah. And they're all next to each other. I think somebody commented yesterday that they also modify the keys on their keyboard to make it very easy for them to edit.
That's such a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Photoshop comes built in with all these keyboard shortcuts, but it can be crazy to memorize them all. And if you just are using the same thing over and over again, just make them whatever you want.
Yeah. I do that. I think it's really helped me with my workflow significantly. So the healing tool, I've actually changed the keyboard shortcut. And for the keyboard shortcuts, I actually learned them from my husband because he
Yeah.
does it. And then I have a retouching video on my educational website, and I have the keyboard shortcuts as one of the downloadables. So
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
You can just download those and then pop them right into Photoshop, and then they'll have the same ones you use.
Yeah, precisely. But you would have to get the retouching video for the keyboard downloadable. But I should make that free. I feel like it's such a handy thing. It should be free. So I will consider it.
That can be like the little the hook. Get the keyboard shortcuts and then find out how to use them.
It changes the game. Okay, so I'm actually really happy with how this looks. I think we might have a little bit too many here. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of like get rid of some of them because I feel like I don't want them to be too distracting. But I think it kind of looks fun. There's sort of if you have a look, there's sort of like a little bit of a curve situation going with the bubbles and some coming out of her mouth. So it works quite nicely with the general flow of the image. So even though it looked like I was doing that quite quickly and randomly, I was thinking about how, I don't know, how it sort of worked.
Yeah. I find sometimes
And
it's easy to have like too much detail in there. I like how you pared it down. There's not bubbles everywhere. You've really chosen the ones that you want. Can you kind of talk us through like, um, was it by feeling and balance? How do you kind of decide where you're going to put the bubbles?
I was just thinking that I don't want to distract too much from the subject. So when it came to it, it makes sense to have bubbles near the source. The bigger bubbles would be near the source, and then the smaller ones would be kind of like away from it. So the bigger bubbles are like closer to her, as you can see, like maybe coming from up here. In fact, this one can definitely go. And then yeah, and just like little ones to, yeah, like see the bigger ones are there. There's another big one there. So I was just kind of thinking like that, like what looks a bit more real. That is not the best explanation, but whatever looks good to you is good enough.
There we
I think
go.
that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
I think that that's the real test is like, do you like it or not? At the end of the day, it's your art. So you're the best judge. And we've got Marcia Grasset is asking in the chat, is Bella wearing the same pearl headband as the girl in the photo?
Oh, no, but actually I didn't think of that, but there we go. Yeah, so she's actually wearing a pearl necklace. I have a bag of tricks and there's like all kinds of embellishments in there. So for this shoot, I was just like grabbing whatever was in that bag. But Marsha, that's well done on noticing that.
A necklace becomes a headband. I have a crazy idea. And that would be to do some liquify under the bubbles to make it look like they're distorting the image. Because you know how sometimes like water and bubbles can like create like a diffraction type of thing?
Yes. I'm in. Okay, what do we
you want to do it together?
Yes, I'm in. Let's do it.
Okay, fantastic. So basically, I think that Liquify would probably be a good way to do that. What do you think?
I like it. I have no idea what you're seeing.
Okay.
But I want to play.
Okay, let's see if we can play just a little bit. I don't know. Hopefully it won't take up too much time here. But I think if you make your bubble layer invisible real quick.
Yep.
And then create a new layer underneath that.
Oh, so sorry, my phone's ringing. I forgot to put on silent.
Yeah, no, I do it all the time.
Okay, so are we making a stamp layer?
Just a regular layer that'll be a stamp visible. So yep.
Okay. It's doing.
It's thinking. It's like, really 100 megapixel? You're gonna do a stamp visible?
Should I call it Liquify?
Yeah, that'll be Liquify. And then I think what we'll want to do is we'll want to see where the bubbles actually are, right?
Yeah.
So if you turn the bubble layer back on, we'll need to be able to see that in the Liquify dialog, right? So I think what we could probably do is can we do a duplicate of that entire bubble group?
Yeah.
There we go. And then hit Control or Command E. We'll just merge that together.
With the two bubbles?
No, just the top one, just the top group.
This one?
Yeah, just the top group. We'll just merge it with itself.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Let's hit undo. I'm sorry.
No problem.
We'll make the bottom bubble group, deselect the bottom one. So we're only going to use the top one.
Okay, no problem.
There we go. And then let's make that visible and merge it with itself.
Okay, so let me apply these layer masks.
Nice.
And we're going to make them one layer.
Yep.
Yep.
And then maybe we'll just call that layer like bubble reference or something like that.
What happened to them? I think I lost.
Oh, the whole group is invisible.
Oh, that would make sense. Okay.
Sorry, I'm getting a little bit like Photoshop nerdy here.
No, it's absolutely fine. I'll just bring that on top and get rid of this group.
Ooh, good idea.
Okay.
Maybe we'll name this like bubble reference or something like that.
Okay.
Okay, so let's click on the Liquify layer. And then we'll go to filter and then down to Liquify. Because I think this is going to be super cool. There are a couple features built into this Liquify tool that are going to make this that are going to make this great. So one thing, I don't know if you've done this ever, Bella, but you can actually show the backdrop. So if you go to the bottom right, kind of like in your dialog box, there's a button for show backdrop. Go up just a little bit more. It's that unchecked one there, show backdrop. There we go. And then where it says use, instead of all layers, you can choose to click on that. And then you can go to your bubbles, wherever you just created your bubble reference. You might have to scroll down quite a bit.
Maybe, oh yeah, where is that
bubbles reference?
There it is.
There we go. Cool. And then now you can kind of change the opacity there right below it.
Are we going to make it like that?
Yeah, basically so you can see. And then now what you can do is zoom in to your image.
This is really fun.
Yeah, if you zoom into your image and then your tools on the left-hand side. So you know you have your regular push and pull tool. If you go right down from that, just a couple of them, there's what's called the bloat tool right below that one. So there's the pucker tool and that's the bloat tool. So if you click on that and then make your brush size about the size as the actual bubble, what it's going to do is it's going to push out whenever you click.
Yes.
So basically it'll create like your diffraction or distortion like in the shape of the bubble.
Holy crap, this is such a good idea. It makes it look so real.
It's basically using the bubble layer as a way to like see what you're doing, but then you can kind of create that diffraction to make it look like that's happening through the bubble layer.
Correct.
Does it seem like it's working?
It is. It's like on a small scale. I'm trying to find like a right, and there, see like somewhere like here, like people can really see that now. There, I zoom in. So it's such a great way to add like a sense of realism because like, yeah, see the waves in the fin. Can you see that?
Yes, they're like it looks like they're kind of diffracting where those bubbles are. Yeah. And then you can kind of just press and hold and draw little circles in there and it'll make the effect like stronger and stronger.
Okay, there we go. Because I was just pressing, but if I just press and draw.
Yeah, if you press and draw, it kind of like, it'll make that effect a little bit stronger and like really make it look like there's kind of like diffraction. Oh, there we go. We can see it happening really well now.
Yeah, hang on. That was a bit too strong, that one. Make that smaller. So it really helps if the brush size is the same size as the bubble that you are working on.
Definitely.
So you want to make sure that you're using the bracket key to make it bigger and smaller. So your keyboard shortcuts don't work in the Liquify panel. That's what I found out quite early, but the bracket key does.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. This is so clever.
Just a fun little thing I thought might be,
How did you come up with this?
Just while you were doing it, I thought, hey, that'd be pretty cool to have some diffraction in those bubbles.
Yeah, and it makes it look so real. Okay, I think that's most of them, but I feel like from now on, you're going to see more bubble work from me.
Fantastic.
Okay.
What do you guys think in the chat?
I love that.
Get our bubble team going.
Okay, so I feel like I did quite a few of those.
Awesome.
So I'm going to hit OK.
Then it should apply it to this layer, and then you can just make your bubble layer invisible, your reference layer, and then go back to your regular bubbles.
That. So
I think those layers might be turned. Yeah, there we go.
If I turn this off and on, you can see the difference now, like where those bubbles are. Right? That's very cool.
It's super cool. It's a subtle detail, but I think it's worth playing around. I know we got a live stream today and we got a lot to do, but I thought, you know, for those people at home, that might just be a fun way to kind of make it look like there's a, you know, a little bit of diffraction going on through the bubbles.
Super fun. Wonderful. Okay, so I love that. Thank you very much. That's something new. I'm going to go ahead and start with the next step.
Perfect.
So usually when I work on a picture, the first step is the composition. The second step is the cleaning of the image. The third step is the liquify. So usually the second step, which is the cleaning, I use two tools, and I use the healing tool and the clone stamp tool. And you can find both of those over here. So this is the clone stamp tool there. And then the healing tool is over here, the Band-Aid.
The Band-Aid fixes
Yeah,
everything.
fixes everything. So I'm going to make a brand new layer, and I'm going to call that healing and stamp. I might just do them. Actually, I might just do healing on one layer and stamp on the other.
Nice.
But, or just title that clean, and we just.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Clean it up.
Clean it up. Now, when it comes to cleaning an image, I really just look at, and I'm going to make a new layer so I can really identify what it is I'm going to clean, and I'll use a color. Let's see if I make this smaller. So when it comes to deciding what to keep and what not to keep, it's really very subjective. It honestly just depends on you, the artist, photographer, what you want to, what direction you want to go. I know some people hyper edit and some people don't edit at all, and both are fine. It's honestly just down to your vision. I like to just keep what was naturally there. So for example, she had like these little birthmarks. I would keep those. I like the freckles, and anything that's like there permanently is, yeah, is part of her. So I usually keep all of that. But things that might be there impermanently, like a spot, or like, you know, like if you picked something or something like that, I would get rid of that because I feel like that's not really adding to her story.
I completely
Unless,
agree. And that might
yeah,
not be there next week if you were to photograph her, you know? So it's okay to get rid of that stuff.
I think so too. So I would probably get rid of, oh, maybe make this 100, 100 so we can see. Like stuff like this, little things like that. Um, anything that, actually she's got great skin. Should have picked one with like maybe not so great skin, but yeah, Fallon has gorgeous skin. Yeah, things like this little red thing over here. I do try and keep the skin cleaning as minimal as possible, mainly because I end up actually sending a lot of it to my husband, whose job it is to actually do skin work. So what you're gonna see me do is just like the minimal stuff, but it actually gets the job done, like more often than not. Like I will take the image just 98%, and then Fatigue will take it the rest of the 2%. So for the heal tool,
You guys are an amazing duo.
it's
Really
really,
like complement each other very well.
I think so too. So with the heal tool selected, I want to go ahead and just make sure that I'm on a brand new layer, it's empty. And because it's empty, it needs somewhere to sample from. So I will go to the top over here and just ensure that the sample is set to current and below, so that it is now sampling from everything below it. And as you can probably tell from the way I work from the bottom up. Um, I very rarely jump between layers. That's why it's a very systematic process. So all the composite stuff is done, and then that's in like its own section. Then we move on to the next stuff on top of that. So sample is set to current and below, and if you've got Photoshop 2021 or 2020, the latest version of Photoshop, just make sure that your legacy is ticked as well. There is a reason for that. I don't really know what it is, but I was told to keep my legacy ticked, so I'm telling you to do the same.
Keep that on there.
Yeah, the experts told me to do it. He told me why. I don't remember, but I will share it so with you. So when it comes to cleaning, I'm just going to zoom in over here, and really this is where the keyboard shortcuts really do help. So having your brush, being able to make your brush sizes big and small very quickly helps you so much when it comes to particularly doing skin work. I'm going to go ahead and sample from nearby the blemish, and making sure that my brush size is the same size as the blemish itself. I'm just going to like lightly rub on it. Oh, and it's taking a minute to think. Yep, there we go.
There we go. Perfect.
Yeah. So I'm just going to select and brush. And one more thing that's really important is to just check over here. If you go to your brush size on the top right, you can actually see the size, the hardness, spacing. So I personally keep the hardness down, but some people leave it up. It's really not a big deal. Pen pressure should be off. So it is up to you, of course, but I actually find that with the pen pressure on, I have less control over that brush size. So the whole point of the brush size is so that I have control exactly what I'm hitting. So I will make sure that that is turned off. It was turned on because I updated my Wacom driver.
Good call. Yeah, just keep it like the right original size.
I think so, because otherwise you're playing guessing games. So you
Nobody needs that.
No, nobody needs that. So you want to go ahead and just sort of sample near the blemish and then lightly brush away. And all this does is a tiny action, but it makes the biggest difference. And you have to ensure that the brush that you use is the same size as your actual blemish. So I'm just going to go lightly. And really what I'm focusing on is just stuff that I can clean that are texture based. So anything that is a light base, I would actually sort that out in the dodging and burning part of the journey, part of the workflow. So when it comes to like, say if I wanted to do something here on this corner, what I would do is select from the corner itself. So like somewhere here, and then just lightly brush on top and it will like read that information.
It's perfect.
Yeah. Apart from that, there really isn't that much in the cleaning process, but that is just an insight into like how I edit. Like I would do the composite first and then jump into literally just using the healing tool and the clone stamp tool. Now,
do you find that? Oh, go ahead.
Actually, no, go on. I'd love to hear what you're going to say.
Do you find that like this is a little bit like meditative to do all this like little cleanup and touch up?
Do you know what? For some people it is. I get really bored. So for I know like for my husband, he loves this. He could literally do this, and he does do this for days. This is like his joy. I get so bored with this process. I like to do the composite stuff because it's fun to throw things together and see what happens. This I find very boring, and then the color turning I find super fun as well. So I think I'm not a technical person.
Yeah, definitely. You're the creative, and you know, you're like genius creative. You can get that. That's what's fun, and that's what you really enjoy. And then, yeah, someone else can kind of take over some of this technical stuff.
Absolutely. And I think if you can find somebody who can help you do the things that you don't want to do and they do it better than you, I feel like that's sort of like the cheat code to life.
Definitely. I completely agree.
Right? Like you don't have to be good at everything. Like you genuinely don't. Be great at what you actually are good at. And then I think it's okay to be good enough at like the stuff that you're not so good at. You should know a little bit, but I don't think it's like important to be like amazing at every single thing. That takes the pressure off as well.
Exactly. We don't have the time to be amazing at everything. It's really good to specialize. And a lot of the people who I know who are successful artists, they do specialize. They're like, I do this and I do it extremely well. And I don't know anything about other stuff, but this is my area.
Yeah, I think it's been something that I've started to like learn to like let go of, because I am very much somebody who like holds on to I can do it all by myself. But I found that very lonely. So that's why I've definitely been collaborating more, because I love working with other people, and like even like doing this with you has been such a joy, because I literally just love working with other people.
It really is so much fun, especially if they can kind of pick up where, you know, like the makeup artist you worked with here, she's an amazing artist. You guys can collaborate and create this thing together that maybe each one of you individually couldn't make this, but when you all combine your skills, now you can do something that is greater than the sum of the parts.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm glad you brought up the makeup artist, because actually the makeup here is creased, like what we saw, and what we can see. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how I would like fix this.
Cool.
So making sure that I'm on the healing brush tool again, I'm just going to go ahead and just sample near and just brush on it. It does help zooming in on this stage, because you can really like change your brush size and have more control. So right now, all I'm doing is using the healing brush tool to lightly brush away. And because everything is near each other, I can hit Command and Z and just go back. So if I go too far and you see, oh, it's disappeared, that's because I've hit the Command and Z or Z shortcut to just go back one step. It does not have to be perfect, because again, looking at this piece from this close up, unless you share this particular detail. So if it looks good enough, I think that's fine. The good and bad of it. So here we go. This is literally just from the healing tool. Now, if I wanted to use the clone stamp tool, then I would literally just go to the clone stamp option over here. Same thing, ensuring that my sample is set to current and below, and looking at the brushes, yeah, it's set to 0% hardness. And for the opacity, I usually leave it at 100%, and it's the flow that I play with. So it's a flow that I would change, like 9% flow, 1% flow, 100% flow. Again, if you haven't played with flow in your process of when you're brushing and clone stamping and in the brush tool, try it. It's really fun. It's really fun because it really does a good job at gently building up the effect, and looks really real. So I'm just going to lightly sample from nearby and just brush and just get some of that texture so it doesn't look like her makeup is like creased so much. Just lightly brush across here and that way, and come back, and it still doesn't look great. If Pratik saw this, he would not be happy. But it's good enough.
I think it looks great. And like you said, it's one of those things where, like, it's not always important that it's perfect at 100% detail, because at the end of the day, most people are going to be viewing this on their phones, and it's always a balance between like how much time are you going to spend something versus like what are people actually going to see.
Exactly. So what I just did was I realized that it looked a little bit too bright, like some of the areas looked a bit too bright there. So I just jumped through a curved layer on top and clipped it, and I'm just going to lightly brush away with a, hang on, let's turn that over. There we go. Invert the layer mask, and now I'm brushing the effect on top. I'm just going to lightly brush on the area just a little bit, just to like darken those light bits that were standing out a bit too much. And effectively, I'm just like burning. So this is how I dodge and burn using a layer mask like that. So if I turn that off and on, you can see like it was a little bit bright there, like here, a bit smudgy, but by darkening it, I can kind of hide what I did.
Looks really good. Yeah, I think most definitely, like,
you don't notice it so much
at all. Yeah.
So we do the same thing over here. So I would just go over here, and again, I would just use the clone stamp tool, lightly sample from the side, and just brush really gently across like that. Okay, so if I'm happy with that, that's usually this is usually the part of the process where I will literally just focus on the next step. So after color toning, let me see if that's right. Yep, that looks good. Okay, so after cleaning, I would do the liquifying. And when it comes to liquifying, I would make a brand new layer. So similar to what we did before with this previous Liquify layer. So I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that my top layer is selected. And I'm going to hit the Command, Option, Shift E, shortcut. So if anybody hasn't done this before, it's really fun. It's literally just 4 keys. It's Command or Control, Alt, Shift, and E. And it just makes a brand new layer with everything visible from below it, stamped. But be warned, it does make your file size bigger. So yeah,
I find it's super helpful, especially if you want to do like filters that you can't do on a blank layer like Liquify. You know, you definitely don't want to go merge all your previous layers together. That's a bad workflow. So creating one of these layers on the top is an easy way to kind of like get around that restriction.
Correct. I used to actually do this a lot and then do my clone stamping and dodging and running and all of those on these layers before I learned how to do it in a way that made the file size a lot smaller. Because I like when you do it this way, the file size just gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
It really does. And then sometimes what I'll do just to like keep my file size low is like I'll do a stamp visible layer, but if I only affect part of it, I'll just delete the rest of it that I didn't even change anything.
Exactly. Because you don't need it. Like, why? If you don't need it, don't just get rid of it. It's sitting there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna go to the Liquify layer over here, and when that's pulled up, there we go. Now, when it comes to liquefying, it's really fun because I can effectively choose to mold the model. It sounds really crazy. But anything that I feel could be smoothed out so that it's almost like a drawing, like if I was drawing her.
Cool.
That's how I like to think about it. But again, this is just like a personal preference. So take it all with a pinch of salt.
I think you're still on the other tool, by the way.
I am the other tool, yeah.
I just wanted to give you a heads up on that one.
Let's make her head bulbous.
Boop.
So I'm gonna use my brackets I'm gonna turn off the preview because I don't really want to see that.
Oh, and you can turn off the show backdrop too.
I think that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah, I think the show back.
Put the preview on. Turn off the show backdrop.
There we go. Perfect.
Yeah, there we go.
I tripped you up from earlier.
It's okay.
Throwing all these curveballs at Bella.
I like it. Let's do it. I'm going to ace this test.
Yeah, you got this.
So I'm just gonna like make her head a little bit more round. Some of the swishiness on the tails, I might make them extra swishy. Do you find, Aaron, that if you liquefy something a bit too much, you lose the texture, the detail of it?
It does lose a little bit of texture and detail, but I also find sometimes with composite work like this, it can actually kind of bring detail together too. Like, let's say if you put the fish in there and the fish was like too sharp for the photo, if you do a little bit of liquefy, it can actually bring it together a little bit more.
Yeah, that's true. Very true indeed.
So I think there can be some benefits from actually like a little bit of quality loss because it can kind of make composites look like a little bit more seamless.
Actually, that might be true because I do a lot of this playing around in the Liquify when it comes to swishing hair and making dresses extra floofy. And I think you're right. It is that loss of detail that actually contributes to making it look more real.
Yeah. It's funny how that works sometimes. It's not always about having like every pixel being absolutely perfect. Sometimes you actually want like a little bit of blur and motion. And I think it gives it like a different type of quality. And especially with composite work, it seems to really help.
100%. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just carry on playing here. So she actually doesn't need that much doing, because everything is like at a really nice angle. But like down here, I could bring that neck in. Usually what I always look for is just smoothing out anything that's like bumping out or like tucked in a bit too much. So just making it more like as if you did just draw her. So and that it happens a lot with dresses because there's a lot of like bunching on dresses, or like yeah, I just smooth it out. So it just flows nicely. And so when you look at the picture, it kind of like presents itself in a particular way. Um, if you're not sure when it comes to liquefying what you should and shouldn't do, then you can just make it like very gentle. Like you don't have to like go in so hard. Like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of these are just super light nudges. My pressure is set to 4, and I change the size as I go to just suit the area that I'm working on. And then you can always go back. There's literally nothing to be like nervous about in this process. I'm just tucking in her nostrils a little bit over here, and maybe just making her lips a little bit more plumper,
Mm-hmm.
like that. Just a tiny bit
Yeah.
there.
So it's really subtle. You're not going for huge changes here.
No, not at all. I hardly ever do huge changes on the girls. It's just to like, just to make the lines flow better. That's it. Um, and but I think I used to before. So when I was in the beginning and I didn't really know what I should and shouldn't do, I used
Hmm.
to do bigger changes. And also it depends on the model. So sometimes some of the models were like, oh, can you please make my waist smaller? Or can you please make my arm smaller? Like, because they might have that insecurity. I had
Mm-hmm.
insecurities too. So I'm like, don't worry, girl, I got you. So it just depends on uh, your relationship with the model as well.
Totally. And I think just, whoever you're working with, go with their recommendation, like if someone says, "Hey, could you please change this about me?" Like, yeah, that's a good opportunity to do it. But I don't I usually won't change something if someone doesn't ask for it.
Mm, very true. Okay, so I am happy with how that looks. I'm going to just zoom out here and we're going to hit OK and then we'll see the difference.
Cool. The before and after, always my favorite part.
Me too. This is always really fun. Okay, it's so subtle, but you can definitely see a
Wow.
difference. I can make this bigger. That. See, like the tail, like everything just looks so much more cooler,
It really does. Yeah, it kind of changes the dynamic of the whole image. It's crazy how much that did.
right? Like even on her, you can see that on her face as well. Like her eye, I made her eyes just a little bit wider. Um, I don't know why. I think it was just more just like fitting with the fishies. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, and it's
and
like 10%, little bit, tiny bit here and there, and it all adds up to make a big difference.
yeah, so like over here for a head, I just brought that down a little bit. I think I brought it down too much. So actually, what I would probably do is open that up, and then if I felt like it'd gone too far, which is what I said it's okay if you do, then open up a layer mask and then just bring it back. So like that, that's probably better. And then just use that layer mask to tidy it up.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm happy with how that looks. And now I'm going to go ahead and jump into the part that I'm sure we are all very excited about, which is the color toning.
Let's do it.
Okay. So when it comes to color toning, I use everything in Photoshop. Everything that I love is down here on the bottom right. It's in the layers panel, and if you hit the adjustment icon, then you can see like there's a whole bunch of things available. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and go through every single one of these because we might be here for longer than our allocated time. But I will show you a few of these adjustments that I really love. And I feel like if you can master them, then you can color tone anything. And if you do want to learn more about all of the different adjustments, then I have a color course on my educational website called the Color Lab. And that goes through all of them and it goes into detail. Like, so you can really know what each adjustment layer does and become a master at it.
And I'm
Now,
linking you up in the chat here so everyone can follow
ah,
that link and check out the Color Lab. And they can actually get presets from you as well, right, Bella?
that's right. Yeah. I sell actions as well, like colors based on or created from photos that I've already edited, and they did really well. And the colors are so beautiful. I felt like it was such a shame for them to just sit unnoticed and like, they've added so much more to other people's creative journeys once I turned them into actions. And it's like one of the best things that I've done. It's been so cool. So cool to see.
It's so cool how like your work can then inspire other people and you guys can all work together and get better as a whole.
It I never thought of how fun it would have been. Like I've always played with color, as you're going to see, and create really specific color palettes. And then I also was making actions before for myself, because when it came to editing my work for clients, it was just really easy to throw my actions on top, and it had a very uniform feel and a very like Bella feel. Um, and Pratik was like, you should really offer this to your audience, because at that time I wasn't even doing workshops or teaching that much. And that's when I offered it, and people really took it and ran with it and edited their photos with my colors and really made them their own. And then you see it and you're like, holy wow, it's so cool to see how um, other people's journeys can just like take off and yeah, really grow, and like that you've contributed to that growth in like some small way. Yeah, I love it. I love it so much.
It's such a special feeling. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Your work inspires them to create great work, and then they can use your colors and like, and then through that journey, they can kind of understand color better and then take it and then develop their own style even further.
Yeah, and then we have a group as well, so everyone shares in there, and they get in touch with me and we chat, and so you make friends. So it's so nice to like be friends with your own community. I love it. Um, Now, when it comes to color turning, one of the first things I do is I desaturate an image. And when I turned this into black and white the first time, I was really shook because I'm not one to work in black and white. But it looks so good, doesn't it?
It looks amazing.
It looks amazing in black and white. So shook. Now the reason why I always desaturate, and I'm going to drop the opacity to about anywhere between 10 to 30%. So I want to hit like 20%. And the reason why I desaturate is because I find that if you just jump into color toning without toning it down a little bit, you can go from like zero to intensity with color tones very quickly. So I desaturate a little bit first, and it gives me like a little bit more freedom to play when it comes to pushing the colors and adding layers. The way I color tone is I will make small changes on different adjustments and then just build it up, um, so that you don't really notice the build up until suddenly you're at like layer 5 and you've kind of got somewhere that you think is really interesting, and then you turn everything off and you're like, oh my god, what, how do we come here so fast?
How did it? It's amazing. How do I do this again? Oh God.
It's the best feeling. So this is a black and white layer set to normal, but you can always play. Another little adjustment that I really like is setting it to U, but I'm going to leave it at normal for now. I think 20% might be too much, so too little. So I'm going to just go to 30%. Like you can see the colors are really muted now.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no, leave it at 20. So I'm going to just duplicate that layer, and I'm going to go ahead and just multiply it. Now you can see what's happening is that the multiplied layer has really sort of got the colors a bit more contrasty.
Mm-hmm.
If I make this bigger, then we can all see it clearer. I think it might be more fun for you guys. I think that I want the background to be darker and the subject to be lighter. So I'm going to use my layer mask and mask out my subject. So ensuring that my layer mask is selected, I'm just going to mask her out. And it's not like a very tidy job. I've literally just got a big fluffy brush set to 100, and I'm just doing it really roughly at this point. If I like the adjustment and I want to keep it, then that's probably when, once I've like continued a bit more, I can come back to this layer mask and tidy it up to make sure that it's perfect. But like I said yesterday, when it comes to jumping into anything new, I just like to do a draft. Like I do it very roughly, like when it comes to playing with ideas, and then I'll like come back and tidy it up. And that's why working in a very non-destructive manner using layer mask has been like a game changer.
It's perfect because you can change things at any time. It's like you can turn that layer off and on and completely change how it looks. And there's really no wrong way to do it.
No, absolutely not. Just gonna go ahead and save this so that we have it. So just make sure that's saved on my desktop. Make that. There we go.
Brilliant.
Save.
Always a good idea to save as you go.
100%. Okay, so while that's saving, I'm going to jump into our next color adjustment, and that is going to be selective color. Now, selective color is really fun because you can go over here into the properties panel and play in any of these channels. So the red, yellow, green, cyan, it's super fun. And especially for this photo where there is a lot of color. I'm going to just stick to the neutrals. Now, what these are is the whites affect the highlights of the color highlights, the neutrals affect the midtones, and the blacks affect the shadows. So we're going to stick to neutrals, and I'm going to play just by moving the sliders back and forth, something like that. And what I'm looking at is a skin tone. So, and overall, like I'm not really being too tidy with it. I just kind of think I want to warm up the picture a little bit, get some kind of like lovely, I don't know, creaminess to the photo, and then we can see where it goes from there. So this is really the first step to sort of searching for a creamy feeling. And essentially, color toning is something that can go a multitude of ways. And deciding how to color tone a picture is really tricky because you don't really know what's possible until you just play. So in the yellows, I always find that this is really fun because the yellows, when you push them like when you move the slider to the right, any skin tone show up. So that's why the first step in the neutrals is always really fun because you can make the skin nice and warm or cool, if whichever direction that you want to go into. I'm also going to move the black slider back and forth so that we have a little bit more contrast. And as you can see, all I'm doing is tiny increments of changes. Like some of them are not even being touched at all. So it's like +1, -3, etc. So if I turn that on and off, you can see that it's slightly warmer than it was before. And I might just move this a little bit more. There we go. Something like that. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is jump into the hue saturation because that's, especially with a picture like this where there is a lot of color, it's really fun. I'm going to see what happens if I move the reds around because I can see a lot of reds in here. And so making sure that I'm on this red channel, I'm just going to slide the hue back and forth. Now, if I move it to the left, you can see that she's just gone very pink. But if I move it to the right, the reds in her skin have been reduced quite a lot, actually. It's become more yellow, so I might move it to the right a little bit. And I can even impact the saturation of that, of the reds as well. So if I wanted to reduce it even more, I'll just bring that saturation down. But I think I like it as it is. Now, I also am looking at what's happening to the fish because if I like the effect on a particular part of the image, then I can just use this adjustment layer, jump into the layer mask, and mask out just that part of the image. So if I liked how it looked, like on the fish only, I would just like mask it out. And we might do that later. Let's jump into the cyans over here. And so the signs are really fun because as you can see, the fishes in the front are quite affected. And I actually quite like them looking green rather than blue. So I'm going to drag this slider a little bit this way and see what happens when I do that. I think the greens against the reds and the yellows look really pretty. So using my saturation, I'm just going to move that back and forth too. And just turn it off and on to see what it looks like. The science also affected the eyeshadow as well, like the eyeliner, the blue eye detail. So I think that looks really nice because it also connects with the colors around it.
It's so cool. Yeah, it goes with your theme of connecting everything back together.
Exactly. Now, if I felt that it made this too bright, then what I can just do is, again, in the layer mask, make sure that my brush is big. I might drop the flow of that and just lightly brush back any detail that I want, like any of the previous color underneath that I want to keep. So I'm not limited to keeping just the adjustment that I made. You can really use the layer mask to craft exactly where the color sits and hits on your picture and interacts with the different elements of your picture. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you don't have to color everything the same. You can kind of pick and choose where you want to draw attention.
Precisely. And I think that's where becoming a crafter of color really comes into play. I know a lot of people struggle with that, and that's absolutely fine. Like, we all have our strengths and weaknesses. So, but having control has always been something that I've really been attracted to. And in color toning, because it can go a multitude of ways, layer masks offer me that level of control.
Yeah, put it exactly where you want. And, like, you really can totally change the mood of an image with color. It's fascinating, really.
So we are in the color balance adjustment layer. Now, this one is really fun. So if you are nervous about color tuning, then color balance is probably like the first one I would recommend because it is just so easy and so fun. So when you go to your color balance, you've got the drop down menu over here for the tones, and it's split into shadows, midtones, and highlights. I just start in the midtones, and you are able to just move these sliders back and forth. So immediately, just by moving the sliders in the midtones, you can immediately start to see a difference globally. So I'm just going to move them back and forth, and I love the way there's sort of like a luminosity situation happening over here. The colors are working really beautifully over here with the fishies, and the skin is looking quite pretty too. I'm going to jump into the shadows, and now I will play in the shadows. Now the colors in the midtones will be affected slightly, so it feels really fun because you don't really know where it's going to go. And I think that's why I really like it, because you don't really know where it's going to go. So I will literally just play now in the shadows. If I want to add more blue, I can move it to a cyan direction. If I want to take away some of the blue, move it to the right. I like that it's sort of getting darker, and then the fishies are like popping a bit more. So I feel like I'm happy leaving it here. And it's the same with the layers, the panels underneath. So I'm just pushing and pulling very gently. And you can already start to see that it's starting to like pop. The shadows in the background, like the darker tones have started to really like become darker. And then the tones are like really starting to like shine through. In the highlights, this is where you can see it's being affected across her forehead, across her nose, and like her upper lip and her cheeks. So if I move this back and forth, you can really see where that color is being impacted. You don't need to move this like crazy amount to make a difference. So as you start using these adjustments, you're going to start noticing that your eye will know the difference between one number and another number. Like, it will know the difference between 13 and 14.
It's crazy.
Like 1 and 2. And when you get to that place, you have my sympathy, because it's really hard to make a decision.
Color is one of those things that where it's like it's so subjective. Everyone sees color differently, and I'm always amazed by people who like your work. I can tell that you really understand and love and work with color. It shows through your work, and it's something that as an artist I've kind of always struggled with color. I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing with this. Like, it kind of looks good over here, but it could also be totally different, and I don't really know what I'm doing. So do you have any advice to anyone out there who's kind of like struggling with color and like trying to find their own balance?
Yeah, I think that what helps me, if I definitely have no idea which color direction to go, and that does happen, not often, but it has happened, is having a reference. So yesterday I showed a picture. I'm just going to grab it again because it does make a big difference.
Definitely.
Okay. So if you have idea of what you want to create. So I had this picture, I liked the colors in it, I kept it in case it inspired me one day, and it did.
Can you just hold that up right to the webcam?
Yeah, there. So this is just like a painting. I really like the muted tones in it. There's a lot of oranges. The shadows are really dark. And by analyzing another person's piece of work, so like a photo or a painting, I usually look at paintings because there's just more depth of color that I'm attracted to. You can really start to identify what it is that you like. So I like the shadows. I like that the highlights are muted. I like that there was sort of like a symphony of like reds and oranges and pinks, and they all look like they were sort of from that same color range. So really being able to like look at a piece of work and start breaking it down. Then when it comes to a photo or a picture that you have in front of you, you can start breaking it down like that. So you can be like, okay, well, how would this look if I deepen the shadows? And how would this look? Let's see, this one has, the pinks look quite nice. So how can I use the tools that I have to harmonize the colors to make it like, like maybe more pinks or more oranges, or maybe like different shades of blue or different shades of green? Like, how can I harmonize the colors? I liked, if you like the color, if you like the fact that the highlight is more muted, then you can be like, okay, well, how can I use the tools in Photoshop to reduce the highlight here? And curves can help you do that. There's like a bunch of other, like levels can help you do that. So that's where understanding the adjustments really help, because knowing the technical and then using your analytical skills for other people's work that you then want to like apply into your own, you can start marrying those two and then use that to create your own approach to color toning. If you're somebody that color toning just does not come naturally to, and you have no idea where to start, that's where I really think like knowing the foundation of what you can do, and then if you just find yourself a reference that is similar to the piece of work that you have in front of you, and then you can start like going towards that direction. It will never be the same because your picture is not there. It's not the same, but it's a good start. And it will be, you will make it your own along the way. That would be my advice on that.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And I love the idea of using a reference. And I think a lot of people, are not sure whether it's like quote unquote copying, but if you take a color reference from one image and then maybe a composition reference from another image and then subject material from another image, then you'll create something that's completely unique and nothing like anything out there.
Yeah, 100%. Because it's your vision. Like along the way, you will tweak it. And you have to start somewhere. So yeah, as long as you're like not, as long as you know the difference between inspiration and like blatant copying, I think you're fine.
Yes. Yes,
And
totally.
most people do.
Most people do. Yeah, it's pretty obvious when we're being inspired versus copying. So,
Mm,
but I think that that's great advice about the colors and analyzing colors and like the highlights and shadows and seeing how they all play together and then trying to go for a similar feeling in a piece of artwork. I think it's brilliant.
Good. It helped me a lot, especially when I get stuck. But I only started to think of it because Pratik is not very good at color. Well, he is actually much better now. But before, when he was starting to shoot, he wasn't comfortable with it at all because you can just do a bunch of things. So working with him and like seeing how he approaches color, and then like what advice I could give him to help him grow on his journey, that really was where I started to really think about like, wow, there are some people who really, really do struggle with this. So
I think it's very common. And I think for me, I'm one of those people. Like the technical stuff, like I've always felt very comfortable with the technical side, but it's always like the, the color and kind of like those, a little bit harder to nail down things that I've always struggled with personally. So good job on helping Pratik out. It's so cool that you guys get to work with each other and like both help each other create better work. It's awesome. Such a fantastic partnership.
it really is. He's way more technical minded than I am. And I'm definitely not a technical minded person, unfortunately, even though I really try to be. I'm not, it just does not come naturally. So that's why I love it when other people are technical, because I feel like, yes, teach me all the things. Okay.
Fantastic.
So I'm going to go ahead and turn this layer off and on so you can see what we've done. So color balance is really fun. See, we didn't move the sliders that much, but literally just as one color adjustment, playing in the shadows, midtones, and highlights can change the game. And if you really like how it looks on a particular part of the image and not on the other, jump into your layer mask. If you think that it's too strong, jump into your opacity and drop that down. So maybe drop the opacity down to like, I don't know, 80%. 80% actually looks pretty good, so I might leave it there. And that's another way to control the color building process. So you've got your layer mask, you've got your layer opacities, and then we're going to continue.
Brilliant.
Now, the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is do a... Now, this is very common color adjustment, and curves is really versatile. You can use curves to do your dodging and burning. We're not covering dodging and burning in this video, but if you want to know how I dodge and burn, then it is in the Color Lab website, but I use curves. So I would work in the RGB channel, and I would drop the middle point down, and I would push it up, and I would use a layer mask to control how the light and shadow hit an image and make it very seamless and pretty transitions between the light and shadows. Now we're doing colors with curves. So you're going to go into the other channels that are available here in the drop-down menu as well. And they are red, green, and blue. And they're really fun.
They are so much fun. And I feel like these are a little bit hidden, like only a select few people get to know about these.
I feel like the moment I started learning how to use curves, like curves was the first color adjustment that I learned how to use. Prior to curves, I was using textures to color down, and I don't even know what I was doing. But the moment I started using curves, that's when like the whole world of possibilities opened. So you can drop points on this curve line and push and pull them. So I've just dropped 2 points, and if you want to get rid of a point, you just like hover over it and then just drag it away. So I'm just going to just throw a couple in there, and if I move this top point higher, you can see that the reds are like flooding the image, and if I drop it lower, you can see that the highlights across her face have started to become muted, and the reds have dropped as well. So if you like how that looks, leave it. And it's a very non-destructive way of editing. So if you want to come back and tweak this later, it's there. Like it's not going anywhere, and nothing is set in stone, which is why I really love to use these adjustment layers. So moving the curves pointer back and forth in the bottom one over here, now you're in the shadows. You can see the reds are being affected in the shadows, and the blues are coming into the shadows whenever I drag this pointer down. So I like it. And again, I'm eyeballing it. Like everything that I do, there's no formula. It's just a case of like eyeballing it. I'm looking at the skin, I'm looking at the fishes around her. And I think I just want to get like a nice, soft, muted, slightly contrasty color palette. Like I think that's literally just what I'm going for with pretty colors. And I'm using these adjustments to like just push and pull so the colors are like popping a little bit here and there. Um, and just with that in mind, I'm just making these tiny adjustments. So I've just slipped into the green channel here, and I'm moving these points back and forth. And if I go into the blue channel, I'll show you something else. You can even use the points that are in the corners of the curves, and that's really fun too. So if I drag this all the way down, you can see that I'm like smushing all the blue out of the picture.
So cool.
And yeah, and her highlights are like flattened with like this like yellow effect, and it actually looks very painterly, which is really cool. And if I move it the opposite way, the yellows are gone and we've gone into like blues in the highlights, and it looks very sort of like ethereal. Understanding what different colors mean and how they impact with the viewer's experience is another thing that you should really consider. So certain colors connect with viewers in certain ways. Like blues are cooler, they're healing. Reds are like more dramatic and dynamic. Yellows, if done well, can be happy, and if done not well, can be sickly. Yeah. So in my color education video, I actually do talk about the psychology of color. I don't think that it's something that people talk about enough in terms of like color toning photography. They talk about it a lot in terms of like color toning movies and in other stuff, but in animation. But in photography, I think, yeah, if you can understand the psychology of your colors, you can really change the stories that your pictures tell.
Oh, that's so amazing. And it's so cool that like the whole idea is driven by a story. So your images, like there's a goal to them. There's a story that you're telling through your art. It's like it's not just, oh, I did this random, that thing random, that thing random. Like it's all supporting evidence towards a story.
Yeah, exactly. Because every element in your picture, or in my pictures, I feel I want it to be telling a story. It just depends on your approach and what you like. So this is what the curves adjustment looks like. So I've just made tiny changes in the red, green, and blues. Basically, it's just variations on the S curve. Like I've just, put 2 points and I've dragged them up and down. If I turn the layer off and on, we can see that the yellows have been reduced. The highlights have a sort of like a blue feeling to them. And I like it, but I'm not sure if I'm like in love with it. So I might just go ahead and see if something interesting happens with the blending mode. So that's also another thing you can do. So you can make a color adjustment, and then if you're not sure if you want to keep it or not, rather than scrapping it all together and starting again, which is also okay, you can see if there's something hiding in a blending mode. So if I just move this back and forth, you can see multiply. This is set to 100% opacity. So if we drop that to maybe like, I don't know, 70% opacity, now we might see something. So multiply looks really fun, not gonna lie. I'm actually like loving it.
That's so cool. It's like totally changed the feeling of the image.
Hasn't it? Like the colors are like really popping. And then moving them down, you can really see what else is happening. I love the effects of this like oily effect on the fishes by going to linear burn. Again, remembering that I don't have to have the opacity at 70, I could drop it to 30 if I wanted to. I can just use my layer mask to affect that part of the image. So I just like tuck that in to see if I want to save that. Moving this down, we can really see the differences. Like this is really pretty as well. Overlay, soft light is similar to overlay, but a softer version of it. It looks really good. And there's some fun ones down here with difference, which I really like. Exclusion sometimes does good stuff. Subtract is nice as well. I think what I might do is do a difference, but drop the opacity to somewhere like, I don't know, 20%. So it's really like softened the whole picture now.
It really has.
It's like subdued it. So maybe 10% is better. Yeah, let's leave it at 10%. I liked that like oil slicky effect. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this layer by hitting Command and J, and I'm going to jump back to that linear burn because I think that looked really fun. Let's see if it shows. And if I drag the opacity of it up, I think it looked, well, I think it looked good. Nah, I'm not really feeling it now.
That's the beauty. You can change it at any time.
Exactly. You can change it at any time. This one looks really good though. Vivid light. I think that's what I liked as well. Yeah, vivid light looks really fun. So I'm going to drop the opacity of vivid light to like around 10%. And I'm just looking at the little fishies. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into my layer mask. And to put this effect, I'm going to invert my layer mask. So get rid of it across globally by hitting Command and I. So now I'm going to use my white brush tool and lightly with 100% flow, just brush that effect, that vividness into these little, like any of the fishes that I thought looked really fun with it.
Ooh, that's brilliant.
Right? So this is what I meant when I said you can really use these adjustments in specific places. So I think it looked really cool on her makeup to make it pop a bit more so it matches with the fishies. And maybe like a little bit up here, like across her cheek. That.
I love that. It's such a good advice that, you know, if you do some color work and you're like, man, it doesn't look great maybe everywhere, but it does look good here, just use a layer mask.
Yeah. But make sure that there's a connection though, because you'd hate to like turn the whole image blue and then remove the skin, like the model from it, and she might be red.
Good point. Yeah.
And then you're like, oh dear.
Uh-oh, I've ruined it.
There has to be a connection. Okay, so I really love how that's looking so far. We're going to do one more adjustment, and I think I'm going to show you a gradient map because that's also very fun. Also, I don't know, but I feel like it's quite underutilized. Like I don't think a lot of people use it for color toning. They use it for like skin evening out, if anything. So when you hit a gradient map color adjustment, you can just jump up here and click on this little spectrum. And this little editor menu pops up. Now, over here on the left, this is where your shadows live. And over here on the right is where your highlights live. And you can just click on here like several times, and a little like pot or box will appear. And you can, several appear because I clicked a bit few too many times, but to get rid of them, you just hold on to it and drag it away. So I'm going to drag it away. So now I have my shadows living here, and my midtones living here, and my highlights living there. And I'm going to just go ahead and click on this little pot, hit on the color, and decide what colors I want in my shadows. Now, if you want to know how to use this to even out skin tones, this is an incredibly powerful tool to even out skin tones when you're doing a skin retouching edit. Then Pratik has a great class on it, and I have one on my Color Lab website as well. So it's super fun. Highly recommend you check it out if you are somebody who struggles with evening out skin tone.
Nice. I've linked up your Color Lab in the chat so everyone can see.
Woohoo! Guys, I feel bad. I promise I'm not like going out of my way to plug it, but if it is something that you want to learn more about, it's there. So just wanted to give you that information. Uh,
Fantastic. It's good for everyone to be able to do a deep dive into this stuff.
yeah, especially if you like the more you know, I think. Um, Now over here, I am just going to guesstimate the colors. So I'm literally just hitting, like in the highlights, I think it'd be nice to have like a bit of a blue tint. Now, it's just a guess. I can come back in here anytime and decide I want to give it a warmer tint. So for now, I'm going to just go for blue. Um, in the midtones, green looks really fun, and this looks really fun too. So maybe I might stick with something like that. Maybe something like this. And then for the shadows, I might stick to like a blue. It looks crazy, but something might happen with this. And this is why I say it's like really underused and really fun to play with, because it can go in like so many different directions. And this is where I'm going to use a blending mode as well. So I will just throw those colors and then just see what happens with the blending mode. Soft light looks really nice, and so does, let's see. I came across something the other day and I thought it was really fun. Oh wow, that looks amazing. Like playing with this might be really fun. I don't know if it's like suitable for our picture, but there's definitely something there. This just muted it significantly. I'm gonna leave it in there and just like change another blending mode. So I think I might leave it on soft light because I felt like it had a really nice effect. Wait, I didn't see any change. Okay. Let's change it to, oh, I think something's happened to my Photoshop. I think it might have frozen.
Oh, your opacity is at 10% on that layer.
That would explain it.
There we go. It
That would
just
explain it.
just a heads up, Bella, in about 4 minutes, we've got our artist spotlight coming up.
Okay, great. I think we're nearly done here anyway.
It's
Um,
so beautiful. I'm blown away by what you've done with this color, and so many things I wouldn't have thought to do. And watching you work is really just an inspiration.
Thank you. So I really liked how it looked on Multiply, and I'm just going to do one more thing, which is play with the contrast. So a really fun place to play with contrast is in the curves, um, which I talked about earlier when we jumped into the red, green, and blue. But this time we're going to stick to the RGB. So by moving the pointers back and forth, so if I drag this top pointer down, I'm smushing the highlights. And if I do one point up here and one point down here, I can really have more control over the curve effect, like the contrast effect. That's what I meant to say. So this is just bringing the highlights up a little bit, and this will just play with the contrast and the shadows. If I want to show more shadows, I would lift it up, and if I wanted to reduce the shadows, I would just drop that down. So I think somewhere like here is quite nice. And this bottom pointer over here, again, flattens the shadows. So if I lift it up, I can see more detail in the back. And if I push it across, you can see it's more contrasty. I might lift it up a tiny bit. So I feel like that looks really nice, and I'm happy with that. Usually at this point, I would just go very quickly through my curves and this like tweak. If I think if one of the curves looks a bit too much than the others, I would just jump in and just like move the sliders around a little bit to see what suits, like something like that. Reduce the reds there. But when it comes to color toning, I just throw things on, see where it goes, and then remember to like keep turning things off and on, and I can come back and tweak as I go. I'm just going to gather all of those colors into one group so that we can see a before and after.
Brilliant.
So selecting all the layers, just going to hit a group, going to label it colors, and oh, there we go. And I'm going to turn this off and on. So you ready?
Let's do it. Oh, I can't wait for the reveal.
Okay, before.
Whoa.
And after.
Oh my gosh, it's so crazy how all the colors come together so much more. Like with the person and the fish, like the composite works even better after it's been colorized.
Yeah, and it does take a bit of time. Like I've worked on this quite quickly and I wanted to show you specific tools. So like I've purposefully used those adjustments so I could show you what they do and we play to see what's possible with just those tools. Usually color turning takes me like an hour.
True art, don't rush it.
It's, well, I would say I'm just very indecisive. But
Well,
if
on that theme, Cherry Blossom says, I could watch you work all day, Bella.
Ah, thank you. So yeah, I think the tools that I shared with you, if you like can master those, then you're set.
Oh my gosh, so cool. I'm so excited to see how this has come together, and it's just in time for our artist spotlight. We are going to be taking a look today at Erik Johansson. Let me just go ahead and share my screen here. All right, so we are taking a look at behance.net/Erik Johansson. I think Erik might be from the Nordic country. So his last name, I think, is Johansson.
Mm-hmm.
I might be pronouncing that wrong, but I've been following Erik's work personally for the last 10 years, and I'm just continuously blown away at his creativity, his work with light and color, and from what I understand, I was talking with Paco before the chat. He shoots everything. There's no element of this photo that he's not making and shooting and actually creating. And I think that's what gives his work such a feeling of realism. Bella,
Yeah, go on.
What are the first things that you notice when you take a look at his work?
His concepts. He's got such a strong vision. And I feel like that's like the driving force. You can really tell when you see his pictures that he's really considered the story that he wants to tell. And then the picture is there to serve the purpose of that. It's not like, he's using photography as a tool for his idea rather than like stumbling across the scene. But
Right.
but presenting it to us in a way that, oh, you've stumbled across the scene.
Yeah, like, oh, this is just somewhere. You just haven't seen it. Look at this, the escalator leading up from nowhere in the middle of the woods.
I love it. I just love the whimsy. I think that's literally what always attracts me to anybody's work. First has always been their vision, like what is the story they want to tell. You can recognize Erik's work from like anybody else's. He's got such a distinct style.
There we go. Yeah, it really is. It's all about the story, and I think the interesting thing when you go about creating a story as an artist, if you do a good job, I think people can kind of take their own meaning from your work.
Mm, yeah, really, really beautiful. I think if you want to learn how to composite like this, Aaron, you've got the tool sets. Like you have a class, like you have your learn. I feel like if you like learning to composite like this can really open the door for any sort of creativity that you have in your heart that you want to share.
It really can. And it all starts with the idea. Like, this is one of his classics works I've always come back to. It all starts with the idea, like technically, okay, so what did he do? He, photographed the lake and brought a bunch of mirrors and did some amazing blending. And obviously it's the technical masterpiece, but I think more importantly, the concept is there and the planning and all of the production goes into this. And that's what helps pull these images off.
Yeah. Does he have behind the scenes? Because I feel like I've seen some behind the scenes that he's done on his platform.
I feel like I have seen some behind the scenes. Well, this is a good chance to go ahead and give him a thumbs up and a follow, and you guys can do so in the chat as well. And I know he's on his website. I believe he has behind the scenes on his website as well. And you can also get prints of Erik's work as well. So
You know what's also,
absolutely.
you know what's also really obvious when you sort of look at them like this? There's the color palette. They complement each other. So when your work is presented either on Instagram or like here on Behance, the color palette lends to a really like beautifully aesthetic view of the work even before you've opened it.
Yes.
Mm.
Can you speak a little bit more about color and kind of what you see in Erik's work?
Yeah, so for example, like when you're zoomed out like this, imagine if this is also somebody's Instagram, you only have what, 3 seconds to grab someone's attention before they moved on to somebody else's page. And in that time, the most impactful thing is the color and the composite. So how you like what images you've chosen to put side by side with each other. In Erik's work, you can immediately see it's both of those things, but the color is one of the things that always grabs me whenever I look at anybody's work. And just having that uniformity is aesthetically pleasing and it's inviting. So you then are invited to click on one and then open it bigger. And then that might lead you to be, okay, curious about the next picture. Then you go to scroll to the next photo, and so on. So having like thinking about that your work, when somebody comes across your website, when they come across your social media platforms, using color as a tool to create like a uniformity in your art, invites them into your world from like the moment they come across it. If they see all of your pictures together side by side, like in this case and in many social media platforms.
Yeah, it's kind of like not only are you telling a story with each individual image, but you're also telling a larger story with all of your work combined.
Mm. I really love his use of lighting.
Yeah, it's out of this world. His technical
Yeah, looking at
skills
that.
are obviously very strong,
Mm.
and uh, also his use of color. Yeah, Erik is a fantastic artist. Honored to be
Yeah.
able to take a look and talk about Erik today.
100%. Highly recommend you go check him out. He's been one of those creators that's just been like getting better and better and better. Because I've been following him for years too, and I'm like, how does he still come up with such amazing concepts?
Yeah, he's still going strong, you know?
Yeah, like look how cool this is. But again, this looks like an illustration.
It really does. It has like that art quality. Like your work has a very art quality to it. It feels like fine art, but it's also a photograph, which is I just think a beautiful intersection between art and technology.
Mm,
Absolutely brilliant. All right.
yeah.
Well, I think we are good to go. I am so excited to get to your next piece of work, Bella, or finishing steps on this one, rather.
Okay. All right. So we are pretty much done with this photo. I wanted to show you the process from before to after. And so we're just going to zoom out a little bit here and go through the layers and just talk about what we've done. And then after I've gone through this, I'm going to show you guys another photo that I have, and we can just talk about how I created that. Another composite piece. This is an in-studio piece, and I want to also take a moment while I'm on here to show you a piece that I created on location. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and zoom out and turn everything off so that we can really see how far we've come.
It's amazing what we've done in these 2 days.
Right? It's been really fun. Okay, so we started off with this photo.
Wow. Oh my God, my mind is like blown right now. I like totally don't even recognize that anymore.
It is hilarious what is possible in Photoshop, but actually this feels so mild compared to having just looked at Erik's work. I'm like, wow, we've got a long way to go. Okay, so what the first thing we did was isolate the subject from the background. And I use color range to do that. I'm going to turn that off. There we go. So I use color range to do that. And then Aaron shared a really handy tip as well, where you can use select and subject. And that's been really fun to play with. I've actually played with it since
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Since our live yesterday when I was editing another photo. Came in very handy.
The quick way to do stuff. Always better to get the new techniques.
Yeah, and especially because there's so many things that Photoshop can do. And if you don't know, like you're missing out on something that's just like 2 clicks away. Yeah, so I'm glad that you shared that. We then worked on the background. So for the background, I just threw in some layers, and as you can see, I work very roughly. I threw them in, I blurred the layers, darkened them because I wanted the subject to be brighter than the background, threw some more detail, another layer in there with a different blending mode, darkened, threw a couple of jellyfish to really give us that under the sea vibe. Darkened it as well. And then when I was sort of happy with how the background looked, I moved on to the fishies. Now the fish were really fun to add. I'm not going to turn them all off, but I will turn a few of them off and on. We use layer mask to control how the fishes interacted and engaged with our model. And again, I would just move the fishes back and forth to see where they worked best. And working with layer mask really helped. When it came to these particular fish, I did these by hand, but actually Aaron's technique of, again, using the select and subject really helped separate them. These fishes don't have layer mask because one of the things that we learned yesterday was motion blur. And I then went ahead and added motion blur to all of these fishes.
Wow.
Yes. So they all have a very slight motion blur added to them.
Beautiful.
We did that going into the filter tab, going down to blur, gallery, and field blur. And then if you want to see how we did that specifically, jump into yesterday's video. It's all there. Super fun. And I felt like it has changed the game for me, Aaron, now.
It's so fun, right? All these little things that add up, and then you can kind of use like the technical with the creative and combine them together to create these amazing images.
Exactly. So fun. So then we did, sorry, I think I missed a fish here. I did, yeah. So then we did some more liquefying, but this liquefy is under the bubbles. So what we did was we decided to add some bubbles, and under that I made with Aaron earlier today, we just did a new layer and we distorted the area that the bubbles were hitting, so underneath, so it has a slight distortion. I don't know if you can see it from outside here, but I had so much fun learning how to do that. And I feel like it's something I will definitely take on board for any other bubble pictures as well.
Or like if you had a looking glass, or, anytime you have a distortion in the back, or maybe you're trying to composite like a glass, like a bottle or something into your image, you can distort the background. It's a cool, fun trick.
Exactly. So true. So the bubbles are at 100%, but if they felt too much, I can always go ahead and just drop the opacity of that down to like 70 or 80. Then I started playing with the skin. I showed you very basic what I do, which is a healing and stamp tool to just clean up the skin and the makeup. And specifically what I really wanted to share with you guys is like what I notice. So when it comes to like editing skin. The healing and stamp tool, I shared how I use them, but if you can learn how to use both of those tools effectively, that will sort out your healing and cleaning of any part of an image, not just skin. It will do your backgrounds, your clothes. When I'm in nature, I'm cleaning away branches and leaves and doing some pruning with the healing and stamp tool.
Digital gardening.
Literally my life. I should just stop calling myself a photographer and just call myself a digital gardener at this point. Then we did some liquifying. Now, for the liquifying, I just evened out the shapes that I saw. So you can see over here, particularly around here where this lovely angle of her face is. I just wanted to tidy that up a little bit so it has a more smoother line. And then I floofed up those fishies to no end. I love a good floofy anything in a picture. So I did that using Liquify.
Made such a big difference too.
Mm. And then we just jumped into the colors, and the colors are really fun. I'm going to turn them on. Now, in the colors, we played with several color adjustments. I'm just going to make this bigger and actually make this picture bigger too. And we desaturated the colors. We played with selective color, use saturation, color balance, and a few more things like curves and gradient map. And there are a bunch of other adjustments in here that are really fun to play with, like color lookup, channel mixer is so exciting. You can amend colors in levels. It's just a playground in there. But we use these, and these are, yeah, they really do also get the job done. You don't need to use every single adjustment, but sometimes I do. We use layer mask to really identify where we want those colors to hit. So some of the colors were just on the fish. Some of the colors I would choose to just have on the highlights. Some of them I could have on the shadows. And if you can learn how to use luminosity masks, that's really fun when you merge that with color turning. So that's another trick that like another level of color turning that I one day hope that you can aspire to as well. It was too much for me to bring on board onto this one, but yeah, I've used the luminosity mask with my color tuning too.
Is that something you cover in the color lab?
I don't think it is. I feel like that's more of an advanced thing. I will double check. I don't think I have covered it in the color education video, but if I decide to make a more advanced class, I would definitely bring that on board. Because it's I do use them a lot now that I'm more comfortable with it.
Everyone in the chat's like, please make an advanced video. We want it.
Okay. Since you asked, okay. Okay, and then with the color turning, personally for me, because we edited this very quickly, I'm not like 100% sure that it's perfect yet. I will definitely be tweaking this more, but it's on the way. So it's good enough. We focused on, I was constantly looking at the skin tone, how the colors engage with the background and how the colors engage with the rest of the elements in the picture, so the fishies. And then one last thing that I would probably do is add a vignette. Now, when it comes to adding a vignette, the reason why I chose to do that is because when somebody looks at the work, like this picture doesn't actually need a vignette, like if I'm honest, but some pictures do. Because when somebody's looking at the work, I mentioned yesterday that the attention usually goes to the brightest part of the image, and that's usually the subject's eyes or the subject's face, and the vignette sort of really gently helps direct the viewer's eyes there to the part of the image where you want them to look at first. So I'm going to just show you how I would do it. So I'm just going to go over here and use my curves and drag the pointer in the middle down. And I will go to my marquee tool and just go to an elliptical marquee tool and just do a little round circle and then do a Gaussian blur on this. Making sure that my layer mask is selected and then the background color is set to black, I would just hit delete. So now the effect of that vignette, that darkened bit, is just affecting the edges alone. Now, a trick that I learned from Aaron, I don't know if you remember this or if you teach it now still, was that you would use the lasso tool. Yeah. So back in the day, I saw a video of Aaron's and he was creating something in nature, like he was editing a photo that he'd shot in like nature. and he'd use a lasso tool to like do a lasso to give a more unrefined edge. So this is a circular, is a more refined vignette, but for more like whimsical vignette, if you're shooting in nature or amid some flowers or amid some foliage, I will do that too. I would just grab that lasso tool and just give it like a bit more of a messy vignette.
That's brilliant. Yeah, sometimes it's just a little bit too clean. It almost like looks like it was done in Photoshop.
Exactly. So on a picture like this, where it's a bit more like refined, like it's, it looks a bit more cleaner, the circular vignette I feel would work. But for some of my nature pictures, I just use a lasso tool. Okay,
Brilliant.
so then I'm going to go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and just take that high and like really make it a very fluffy edge. The reason for that is that you really don't want it to look tidy. You want it to gradually slip into darkness. So I think maybe like 700 is fine. I'm going to hit OK and let that do its job. And once it's done, I think I hit OK. So it's still doing something.
Still thinking.
Yeah, I'm still thinking. Okay, so then I'm going to turn this off and on, and you can see the difference. So this is with it off, and this is with it on. And you can see that the fishes around the edge have really like, the light is like fallen off them. So
that's so good.
Yeah, most of the drama is like happening in the middle, and that's why I would use a vignette. And usually that's like one of the last steps before I do the next step, which is refining. When it comes to refining, I will be looking at cleaning up any parts of the color that I feel could do with better blending. So for example, I'm going to just show you roughly. So over here, there's like some purple happening. I would tidy that up. So I will either use a frequency separation to soften that out, or I will get rid of that purple by using another color adjustment and just reducing that tone. Another thing I would might do is do a new layer, set it to a color blend mode, and making sure that, my here we go, my eyedropper tool is set to sample current and below. Then I might lightly brush it away. But I actually personally really like it, so I wouldn't do it. I would probably just blend this out somehow with the frequency separation tool. But we're not going to cover that today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've just got a couple of minutes left here, Bella, and we've got a question here from Fairy. I think might be really great to kind of close us out for the day. Are there any secrets for good fine art, or is it just my illusion that there's a secret?
I don't think there is any secrets. I think it really, like, fine art is what you make it. It like any art. So no, I don't believe that there are any secrets. I think there's just things that you know and things that you don't know.
Yeah, brilliant. And it's down to the individual, and it's obvious that you love creating your work and you put your whole self into it. And that to me is evident in your work. And to me, that is one of the things that defines fine art. Yeah.
It literally is just what you make it. It's all about the vision. I think if there's any secret to fine art, is there's the ability to execute your vision in a way that that honors you. And that's what we all grapple with. All of us, like even the people that you really admire, they struggle to execute their own ideas. Everybody struggles to execute ideas, but then that's what makes it fun.
Absolutely brilliant.
It's pretty boring.
No, I think that's spot on. And it is, at the end of the day, like you said, it's about you. If you're trying to make art to please everyone else, then you might not be coming at it in the best way for your own self. But looking at your work, it's apparent that these are things that they come from you, and they're things that you want to make.
Yeah, I think for me, my passion has always been creating pictures that whisk somebody away. And that has always been my drive, because I like to be whisked away. I read a lot, so I'm constantly getting whisked away everywhere. So with my work, this is just my way of creating something to like whisk somebody away. So that's been my driving force for when it comes to creating. And I don't know what that looks like often all the time, and that's part of like the artist process, like trying to figure that out constantly with each picture. But yeah, if you can figure out what drives you to create, then that will help you, I think, sort of, yeah, make some of those bigger decisions.
Brilliant. Great advice, and a perfect place to end today's stream. Don't forget, everyone, you can watch both days with Bella. She creates this image from start all the way to finish on replay, and everything is available on behance.net/live. I want to thank everyone for joining us in the chat. It was so awesome hanging out with you. Couple little last notes. Stephanie says, thanks so much, Aaron and Bella. You've given me so much inspiration over the past few days, and I can see you both beaming with joy over this. Everyone says they've learned a lot, and everyone, Cherry says, a sleeping mermaid. Very lovely. Thank you, Bella.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me. And Aaron, this was just such a fun experience. And I'm so happy to see actually quite a few familiar faces, familiar names in the chat. So thanks for joining.
Fantastic. And don't forget to stick around. Carol Reyes at 12 p.m. Pacific. She's actually going to be showing us how to use different fonts to create logos here on Adobe Live. Thanks so much, Bella. Oh, I'm so honored to be able to work with you through creating this beautiful piece. It was such fun. And
thank you, Aaron. I can't wait to share the final version. So keep an eye on Instagram. It'll be coming on there.
And we can follow you at Bella Kotak, right?
That's right. Yeah. On all of the platforms, just at Bella Kotak.
All right. And your website is the Color Lab. We'll go ahead and link you up here one more time in the chat.
Thank you. Yeah. If you have any questions, or if anybody wants to know anything, just DM me or drop me an email.
Fantastic.
Okay. So thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.